Live? Well, we are live. This is Mike Benoit, and today, subject of this video or Google Hangout is tax tyranny. It has to do with the IRS stealing my home, something like $300,000 in value, and I'm going to probably have about 5 videos. This will be the first of 5, and this will go through the process. And so if people that are just starting, just watching this, will probably be of a couple of mindset sets. One will say, well, what do you mean they stole your house? What happened? The other one would be, well, that's what you get for not paying your taxes. So they'll assume that you owe taxes for the IRS to steal your house. But most importantly in this video presentation will be the documentation of several incidences of tyranny, of government abuse of power, and violation of not only the IRS rules and regulations, but the rules and regulations of the federal rules of civil procedure and the district court rules. And it will show you that if you ever get in a dispute with your wife, you don't want your mother-in-law to be the arbiter of the dispute. Worst thing about the IRS and taxes is that people don't recognize just how insidious and tyrannical this whole system is. And I don't think they realize, because you start back in 1913, and most of the people were not affected by this. They just, the rich. It's only the rich. And the rich weren't really affected because they said, well, we'll just pass it on to everybody else. So we didn't see a situation where you actually saw the insidious nature of this I don't want to call it progressive, regressive, or anything like that. It's redistribution of people's property and people's production, which is pure unadulterated theft. And in a Christian nation, or any kind of nation based on philosophy that thou shalt not steal, how this could actually occur and happen right under our nose, and for people not to be aware of this. And the tyranny is so insidious and so devastating that you don't see the effects until the end. And then you look back and say, oh my God. And the effects are, they take this redistribution of wealth, redistribution of property, and they create a slave class on one side, and with the caste system involved there too, and overseers and whatnot, and then dependents on the other side, people who become dependent. And you want to talk about the most unhappy classes of people in the world are those that are dependent and those that are indentured. It's free people that are happy. And so this system of the redistribution of your property has created the huge class of people who are indentured and another huge class of people who are dependent. And even in that indentured class, you could be the Bill Gates of the world, but you must do what the master has put out in regards to redistribution of your wealth and the wealth and property of others. Otherwise, you'll be taken from the plantation and put in cages, and or having all your property confiscated from you if you don't adhere to what the master wants you to do. Now, back in the beginning when this stuff just started, the tax amount was so small that the rich people just say, oh, no big whoopee, and they just pass it on to the consumers and the cost of the product. But now it's gotten so gargantuan and gigantic. And when you think about it, even at this size, they can't pay their obligations, these criminals that are engaged in this redistribution racket. They still can't pay the obligations that are established under the racket. So you're the Bill Gates of the world, and you've got to, all the people that work for you, you've got to make them sign this slave form, W-4 whatever. It says that you're a tax slave for this redistribution, communist, socialist system. And so you're the overseer for the government. You collect this confiscation of property for redistribution for the government. And then you have to fill out the same confession forms on yourself. Of course, you find a way that you're going to pass that burden on to your consumers. So, there's your caste system. And so you're acting as a slave master, as overseer, as while being a slave at the same time. And this just works its way down the levels. You get down to the bottom level, and you don't have any earnings, then you get to be on the dependent class of things and live at the expense of other people. And so not are you there as an indigent or derelict or the recipient of stolen property. And what kind of purpose can that be in life? Well, the nature of all of this is masked by the technology that we live in. And so people still say, well, compare your lifestyle to 100 years ago. And people live longer and they have many more convenience. And, the cost of producing food and other things is way down. But the condition of slavery is way up from before. So, and I just, when the conversation just wraps around people like Lois Lerner, I go, what is this? I mean, why are we talking about Lois Lerner's lost email? Why aren't you talking about the tens of millions of notices of levies that go to banks and employers confiscating people's labor without due process, without any trial or whatnot? Why don't we talking about how many cases where the IRS swoops in and confiscates people's homes and businesses and closes them down? The amount of not only just false claims, but even if they were what they consider legitimate claims and what Frederick Bastiat would call legal plunder, because when the government's purpose is to secure your right to life, liberty, and property, and it does the opposite, it plunders your life, liberty, and property, then that's a perversion of the law. And that is what your Internal Revenue Service does. When 90% of the federal government is redistribution, socialism, or 80%. We can quibble about the 10%. Now, if there was a system or mechanism, there was, to tax people without getting, into their labor, that to pay for the legitimate costs of government. Legitimate cost would be the cost to defend our rights, not to violate our rights. There's all kinds of ways to fund that kind of a system, and which would not be violation of your life, liberty, and property, but it would be, a cost to bear in the securing of your life, liberty, and property. But we'll get into my case here, and we'll go through things little by little. Hopefully, I get some attorneys around the country to say, you know what, you got a good case, and I'd like to work with you on it, and in such a way that we can actually pin the government for its tyrannical acts. The case number, for those who want to look up on the records, the court records, PACER records, is 308 CV 02140 MMA-JMA, and that would be in the United States District Court for the Southern District of California. So that's case number. It was filed on November 19th, 2008. And this is the United States complaint right here. Maybe people want to get copies of this later. I'd be glad to do that. And the government has its complaint there, and it's asking in this complaint for a total of $147,000 or $432.19 submitted by attorney for the United States government. So what comes after that? I guess this is document 2, and this is the summons, proof of the summons. And we'll see that. Okay. So then I come and I answer the complaint, and I request a evidentiary hearing and I demand a jury trial. So, and that's my answer. And of course, I deny all their allegations. So, and I'm not going into the detail of all of that. So there we go. They're suing me, and they file a complaint. I deny the allegations in the complaint, and their old proof of service forms. Then the court issues a notice and order for an early neutral evaluation conference. So they set the schedule for things, you know, which is not all that significant to talk about in these videos. And it says notice of right to consent to trial before a United States magistrate judge, whatever. But of course, I'm trying to get a trial. Magistrate is different than a district court judge. I'm trying to get a trial by jury. All right. So answer. Now this is interesting in these complaints. These kinds of complaints. They list the mortgage holder in the complaint by the government as a defendant. And I guess the rationale is then Washington Mutual, in this case, had to come forward and prove up their lien. And so they have to defend their lien. So they're a defendant like me in the case. Yeah, another interesting thing in this is that the franchise tax board is a defendant. So they have a lien that they have to defend. Okay? As part of the process here. In the United States government, IRS, trying to take somebody's home. Okay? So next, where do we go next? So what happens is that the United States government, through their attorney, stipulated a dismissal of Washington Mutual Bank in order, and I guess in there they're agreeing that the $48,000 that is owed to Washington Mutual, that they're secure and they're going to get that when the house finally is foreclosed on. And so they have this joint motion to dismiss, and in there, and actually I objected to that for what it's worth. The government, the United States District Court, grants the motion to dismiss. So then the Franchise Tax Board comes out, and they answer the United States complaint, just trying to justify their claim for money. Oh, somewhere around $32,000. All right, and they show a form that's a notice of state tax lien. All right, so that's justifying their claim with the little rest of their exhibits. Now, when they're trying to justify their claim, at the same time, you know, I would be opposing their claim as well, but they're listed as a defendant. But as a defendant, it's like they're really a plaintiff because they're trying to get $32,000 from me. They're listed as a defendant in a case brought by the United States against me. And so there'll be some interesting twist on that later on when we get into that. All right, so that's my documents 1 through 11 in this court case. And here's an order following their early mutual evaluation conference, setting up a Rule 26 compliance and notice of telephone case management. Again, that's some procedural stuff, and for this video, I'm not going to get too deep into that. Then there's a joint discovery plan laid out by the United States, and what exactly in here is, I guess, some of the people involved with the IRS is being disclosed to me. That you know, I wanted to know where these how you can get a hold of these 18 people with the IRS, and they provided the information in the joint discovery plan. And I produced what they wanted in that plan as well. So, still we're not into the meat of the stuff yet, but we're getting there. There's a case management conference, into that. Then, in the meantime, I filed an amended answer to the complaint, and again, requesting an evidentiary hearing and demand for jury trial. All right. It'll be a little bit, and we'll get into the meat. Proof of service forms. All right. Telephone conferences. Case management conferences. I guess we got, then there's a stipulation of priority of tax liens between the United States and the state of California. So the state of California is saying U.S. is first after the Washington Mutual, and then state is next after that. And of course, I object to that because how can you make a decision about putting the state behind the United States when maybe I have an interest greater than the state? So I think you stipulate that, they come after the United States. Of course, the court approves that stipulation. It doesn't matter. So there's one of the first losses for me, Mike Benoit. And another thing to point out at this juncture, I went and bought on eBay all the books I could to try to understand a little bit about how to work in the district court and motions and procedures, and you name it. So, because I'm representing myself against this $4 trillion behemoth. And I don't have the money to pay for an attorney, and what would an attorney cost me to save, I doubt if I would get attorney fees, to save my house, 50, 100,000. And then if I had it, and then probably lose anyways, because it's still the mother-in-law judging the dispute between me and the wife. There was that scenario. So I'm taking on the United States all by my lonesome, and the judge is in the favor in the court of the United States. So, of course, I objected to that stipulation. That went nowhere. And what comes after that? So I filed a Exparte application to shorten time on a motion that I have that's the state of proceedings. I need more time. Or to extend what they call dispositive motion cutoff date. And dispositive motions are to dispose of stuff, like, maybe find a motion to file a motion to. I'm a little unclear on dispositive right now. Notice of motion and motion by defendant for state proceedings. All right, memorandum or points in support of that, and my declaration in support of that. So, order granting ex parte application for order to shorten time on the motion. So they're letting me do the motion quicker than normal. To state proceedings and extend the motion cutoff date. And so what did they do? Give me a few days on this? Nope, this was just to say, yeah, shorten time on the hearing and ordering the government to respond within a certain period of time. All right, next is the United States motion to state, their response. Of course, they want to object and not give me any more time. And so this kind of finishes this really finishes the setup case here. And I'm going to cut this right here, and then next time when we pick this up, we'll get into some of the meat of discovery, interrogatories, and other things like that. So this is just the setup. Hopefully that's not too long for most of you. We'll stop the broadcast right now.